Hello, and welcome to Korby's Book Club, where I tell you about books that I've read that I think you might enjoy.
She was a book nerd, she had blonde hair.
Before we go on, hey, click the subscribe and little bell button there so you can get wind of the new book reports right when they come out. I'm trying to bring the written word to the masses, okay? Okay, anyway, here's something to keep on the top shelf, out of reach of the kids or really anyone with an aversion to lengthy descriptions of torture or cold-blooded violence generally. It's Henri Troyat's acclaimed description of Ivan the Terrible, the first Czar of Russia who ruled in the 16th century with a combination of fervent religious piety and a nearly complete disregard for his subjects. Here's my copy, kind of a graphic image on the cover there. Spoiler alert, that's Ivan and his son, the latter of which has just received a mortal blow to the head by old demented dad. How did this happen? How did I come to read a book about someone who lived almost 500 years ago in a world that bears almost no resemblance to my own cushy little 20th century home? Well, on a visit to my parents' house about 10 years ago, my dad gave me a stack of books, old westerns mostly, but I guess he'd read this one and he said, I quote, "It was really unpleasant." His review didn't exactly light me on fire, but there it sat on my shelf until last month when I dusted it off and pulled it out. I don't know why still. I think it was something about wanting to be a little bit closer to my dad and thinking about this book that he'd read and had a weird reaction to. And I thought, if I read it, then we'll have that much more in common. That's probably too much, but it's the holiday season and I'm feeling sentimental. Anyway, it really affected me. Ivan's biographer, Henri Troyat, was a prolific author of more than 100 books, several of them about important Russians like Ivan, Leo Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, like that. What makes this book and its namesake memorable are the details of Ivan's life, which was characterized by two things: his arguably ingenious political acumen and his habit of personally witnessing the torture of his enemies, rivals, even family members. I won't get too into it, but here's a gentler anecdote. He famously carried a steel-tipped spear with him at all times to be used to puncture people who perhaps carried bad news or displeased him in some way. Sometimes he killed them outright, and sometimes he just poked a wee hole. In one colorful episode, a messenger arrived in Ivan's court with a long letter from his enemy, this guy Prince Andrei Kurbsky. Irritated, Ivan drove the point of the spear into the man's foot and held it there while he read the letter aloud. The unfortunate messenger is reported to have held in his cries for fear of further reprisal. Ivan had him tortured and put to death anyway. Okay, the book is full of accounts of Ivan hurting people in ways more darkly creative and cruel than anything I've seen in a movie, even Braveheart. It probably cost me something, spiritually, having read these episodes, but there was maybe some utility in it. A glimpse into what harm can come to people in society when a combination of power and indifference meet in a man who perceives himself as a sort of god on earth. It's hard to imagine this sort of thing happening in the kind of check on power that comes with even the most bickering democracy like ours. The other, and this is more subtle, is I kept asking myself what it said about the Russian temperament that Ivan was allowed to persist in his excesses, not for a few years, but across decades. He was feared by his people, but he was also loved by them too, even as he killed their sons, fathers, daughters, wiped out populations of entire cities, as he did with the massacre of Novgorod, in which an estimated 20,000 people, Russians all of them, were killed by Ivan and his personal army, the dreaded Oprichniki. One clue might be in the religious nature that governed the Russia of the 16th century. Here were a people who still held a medieval view of the world as a sort of fixed universe of order. God at the top, then the Tsar, then everyone else. Whereas the European countries of the 16th century were experiencing economic expansion and the beginnings of a modern worldview freed from the fixed religious ideas of the Middle Ages, isolated Russia looked inward and backward. Whatever the reasons, Ivan the Terrible outlived everybody, even his son and heir, whom I said he killed in a fit of rage. Nonetheless, he's somehow not universally despised. The terrible in Ivan's nickname is meant in the archaic sense, as in mighty or to be feared, not as we might use it today as like evil. Ivan the Terrible. Anyway, it's a curious counterpoint to evils of a more modern nature, the Jewish Holocaust, China's Great Leap Forward, and the Gulag Archipelago in Russia centuries later. You should check it out. He was an interesting person, and it was an interesting time. And the more you read about other times, the more you think about what's good and bad about your own. Okay, well, that's all the time we have for Korby's Book Club. Remember, music keeps you young, but reading keeps you sharp. Happy holidays and see you next time.
She was a book nerd, she had blonde hair with a paperback in her back pocket.